There aren't a lot of car-free places left in Southern California. Any and all neighborhoods in Los Angeles that had those specific electric rail cars running through them now have nothing but regular cars, and cycling infrastructure is very hit or miss. This is especially true in older East LA neighborhoods like Echo Park or Highland Park, both of which have great bones, but were largely redeveloped to accommodate for maximum car capacity. Very much not car-free. In order to find the last remaining truly car-free oasis in Los Angeles, you'll have to go as far west as you possibly can, leaving the city entirely. This is the Marvin Broad Bike Trail, also known as the Beach Bike Path, the Coastal Bike Path, the Strand, or the South Bay Bike Trail, depending on where you access it. The Beach Bike Path stretches 22 miles along the Southern California coast in Los Angeles County, from the neighborhood of Pacific Palisades to the city of Torrance. And I walked the entire length just for you, because I wanted to capture just what it was like having ready access to Los Angeles' only remaining car-free urban oasis. The Beach Bike Path crosses through several different neighborhoods and cities in Los Angeles County, and ranges from unmarked asphalt to surprisingly organized cycling infrastructure. And as you can see, it's not just bikes. Let's start off where the path starts, or where it ends, depending on which direction you wish to go. I started in Pacific Palisades, and yes, here in Los Angeles, you do need to tell people that motor vehicles are not allowed on a bike path that's situated 100 feet away from motor vehicle traffic. To say nothing else of the start of the beach bike path, I mean, it's pretty scenic. Apparently on clear days you can see all the way out to Catalina Island, an almost car-free place in Los Angeles County. I'll link my video on that at the end. I do consider the beach bike path an urban bike path, as it goes through many densely populated urban areas, as we'll see throughout our journey. And even though the bike path is locally known as mostly one for leisure, if you're ever commuting from the South Bay beach cities to the Venice or Santa Monica area, this thing is very much capable of commuter cycling traffic. Although that's probably out of the scope of possibility to even think about in the Southern California psyche. Car culture is very dominant here, even if the traffic makes going anywhere in a car the most stress-inducing activity you could possibly partake in. See, a big problem of many of these beach cities is that they're located in Southern California, so they have to accommodate for all of that vehicular demand in places that should just not be littered with surface parking. And unfortunately, as of now, the only metro rail access to the beach bike path is via the E line, which stops in downtown Santa Monica. We'll get to Santa Monica in a second, because they truly have implemented the most cohesive amount of urbanism in all of Los Angeles. The lack of truly efficient interconnectivity in the county at large is a huge problem, but not what this video is explicitly about. So, back to the bike path. The beach bike path is hardly uniform throughout its 22-mile length. As you'll notice, cohesion is not its strong suit, and neither is land use. Here in Pacific Palisades, the configuration has two-way cycling traffic on the inside, and like 1.5-way pedestrian space on either side of that. It's awkwardly narrow, and pedestrians walking opposite directions will have to step into the bike lane to get around each other, which is just not ideal. If only they had some empty parking lot space or an entire beach to expand the beach bike path just like an extra 5 feet so that pedestrians could have some more space. But maybe that's just too big of a sacrifice. I mean, just look at the amount of cars utilizing this parking lot. One thing to look forward to, though, is that the further you get from Los Angeles proper, the better the cycling and pedestrian infrastructure is. Here in Pacific Palisades, though, it's rough. I even got to see my first ever bike path landslide. Further down south, you know you're getting closer to Santa Monica when the path starts getting wider, newer, and nicer with some stellar signage to bat. Here, you have one side for pedestrians and one side for cyclists, and everyone can act accordingly. Entering Santa Monica on foot is a joy, and I especially appreciate the median separating the cycling and the pedestrian traffic flows. And since the main attraction along this stretch of coast is the beach, you'll even see these quirky pedestrian crossings at various pedestrian pinch points, allowing safe passage for beachgoers. A wide path with enough room for two separate two-way non-vehicular traffic flows? Who knew Los Angeles could do it? But wait, let's not forget, we're in Santa Monica here. The beach cities are so urbanism coded, they even have adequate bicycle parking docks at many of the restaurants dotted throughout the beach bike path. Where are we, Barcelona? Nah, just Santa Monica. Further down into Santa Monica, near the world-famous Pier, some savvy entrepreneurs have capitalized on a business idea from the beach bike path. And even though I planned on walking this entire path, well, you know I just couldn't resist. I had way too much fun riding my rental bike here on this stretch of path near the Santa Monica Pier, surrounded by terrific ocean views, a lot of car-free life, and just overall damn great vibes. Bike culture in the beach cities is just so strong. One can only dream just how prosperous and fun the city would be if living a completely car-free lifestyle was not only possible, but practical, everywhere in Los Angeles County. Our streets were built wide, yes, but I actually think that's become an asset for urbanizing the city en masse, implementing wide, four-way pedestrian and cycling paths, the same ones here on the beach. So far, the beach bike path is impressing me a lot, and truly lives up to its moniker of being LA's best urban bike trail that's not entirely in the city of Los Angeles. Now, approaching the Santa Monica Pier, something in the distance piqued my interest, and it might have just been the most unusual and unique find on this entire journey. It seems like the city of Santa Monica created a pedestrian and biking tunnel for the beach bike path going underneath the Santa Monica Pier. This is really cool, and I can't say I've ever seen this type of cycling infrastructure anywhere else in the world. It's kinda dark and dingy on the inside though, and a little trashy, but I'm glad they were able to do this instead of having a path detour. It's so important that such a popular thoroughfare stays as unobstructed as possible, because if it's easier to use, people will use it. So I continued on, leaving Santa Monica behind, and after a quick pit stop at one of my favorite coffee shops, I entered the chaos that is Venice Beach. Venice Beach separates the pedestrian from the cycling path, meaning cyclists are free to continue enjoying the beachfront scenery, while pedestrians have to trudge through this mess. Admittedly, I have never been a fan of this hyper-gimmicky section of Venice, and I always prefer walking or biking on Abbot Kinney Boulevard or on Main Street in Ocean Park. I'm just not a fan of the whole scene here, with people constantly yelling at you, trying to sell you some junk, surrounded by storefronts full of more mass-produced junk. If Hollywood is the Times Square of LA, Venice Beach is like Hell's Kitchen. Maybe a hot take, but I sorta get it when a lot of people say Americans have no culture, especially when this is what we present to those visiting the famous Venice Beach boardwalk. For example, here's what the historic oceanfront promenades look like in Lisbon, Portugal. It's a different world of what could have been here in Venice, and just a reminder that they also have great rail transit too. And I know I wasn't alone being uncomfortable walking around the boardwalk, as many pedestrians have turned to walking inside the bike-only traffic lanes just to escape it. I can't say I blame them either. It's no wonder the boardwalk is full of vacancies. It's really just sad. Venice has so much potential to be an urbanist juggernaut, but as long as it's part of the city of Los Angeles, we probably won't see much progress. As far as the beach bike path goes in Venice Beach, it's fine, if in desperate need of widening for the sake of pedestrian continuity, and maybe also some new tag-free signage so that people can actually read it. Moving on from Venice and into the unincorporated community of Marina Del Rey, you'll run into the beach bike path's most intrusive obstruction, the marina, which unfortunately meant I was in for a big detour whether I liked it or not. Normally this sort of thing could be solved with a drawbridge, but Southern California city planning / NIMBYism is just too smooth-brained for that idea to stick, even though it would do absolute wonders for the beach bike path's continuity of actually staying on the beach. Instead, pedestrians and cyclists wishing to continue on the beach bike path must detour onto Washington Boulevard, putting rubber to the road, continuing down unprotected Strode for about 3,500 feet, until finally reaching the Yvonne B. Burke Park, where the bike path and the pedestrian path reach some sort of uniformity once again. It's not a bad detour, it's just unnecessary, especially when you have so much land, demand, and infrastructure to make it a non-issue. When you reach the end of the detour where the jetty is, it's actually really scenic and fit exclusively for pedestrians and cyclists. Here, the pedestrians are probably supposed to go on either side of the marked bike path, but again, I just think there should be clearer delineations, given the fact that this is a man-made jetty. But once you continue on, crossing over the Bellona Creek pedestrian and cycling bridge, you're officially back to the beachfront bike path. However, here too, the pedestrian markings are non-existent. It's weird and annoying that pedestrians are forced to constantly have to look over their shoulders while walking on a path advertised for both pedestrians and cyclists. You have an entire 750-foot wide beach and can't make this thing just a little more pedestrian friendly? This stretch of path in the LAX area is a great place to plane watch, but it no doubt would have been better if I wasn't constantly in fear of being ran over. Nevertheless, I pressed on into the ever-busy city of Manhattan Beach, and here, the beach bike path gets an A++ for me. It's elevated for pedestrians who walk the Strand alongside beachfront properties, while the bike traffic runs smoothly on the lower level. The whole city of Manhattan Beach is really pedestrian-friendly overall, and surprisingly not overrun with parking garages or surface parking. They've got scramble crossings downtown, pedestrian-only beach access streets running through the residential blocks, and just a lot of stuff you don't normally see anywhere else in Los Angeles County. I wish I got more footage of the pedestrian thoroughfares because they're really something, and they just make getting to the coast so much easier for pedestrians and cyclists. Manhattan Beach is also the partial home of another well-known car-free path, a rail trail called the Beach City's Greenway. It's not paved, and bikes are prohibited from the trail, but it's a great place for pedestrians and dog walkers, and the story on its evolution from Santa Fe railway line to its current greenway form is really interesting. Video all about that coming soon, so be sure to subscribe if you don't want to miss out on it. Overall, Manhattan Beach was a great and thankfully shaded stretch of the beach bike path. Continuing south into the city of Hermosa Beach, I love how this stark and abrupt end of the pedestrian right-of-way coincides exactly with the border of the two cities. Urban planning can be so funny sometimes, and it just goes to show how local politics, and also NIMBYism, plays such a huge part in urban planning, even for something like a beachfront bike path. The path continues down Hermosa Beach until it reaches the border of another city, Redondo Beach, where it's yet again obstructed, this time by King Harbor Marina. The path then dumps pedestrians and cyclists out onto Harbor Drive, but it isn't that bad because they've done a really great job of constructing protected lanes along this roadside stretch of the beach bike path. The path continues down a boardwalk overlooking the Redondo Beach Marina until it reaches this absolute mess of a road system that I'm pretty sure caused me to veer off the path slightly here and there. I'm not even entirely sure. Look, you try to navigate this thing and tell me that you didn't get absolutely sidetracked. Eventually, I was back on track, walking the final stretch with my camera just about dead, but not before finally reaching mile marker 0 in the city of Torrance. I learned a lot about Southern California's famous beach bike path, and honestly, the great cycling culture present here throughout the beach cities. I think there's more than enough resources and will to make this thing uniform all throughout, with wide, two-way, four-lane pedestrian and cycling paths, and I think it would be such a great thing for the county and the various cities to come together to try to implement. Maybe the 2028 Olympics in Los Angeles could spur that kind of project to get going, but unfortunately, for now, I don't see it anywhere in the city's 28 by 28 transportation initiatives, which I'll be doing an entire video on in the coming weeks, so definitely subscribe to the channel if you don't want to miss out on that. Great cycling and pedestrian infrastructure is an asset for any city. I'll stand by the opinion that Los Angeles' wide roads, while first built for cars, can offer so much more for the future of the city if more protected bike lanes, better crosswalks, and just overall deprioritizing of space for cars was implemented. This needs to coincide with more light rail and subway though, because if you're gonna take away the car space that the city was built on, you need to give people other, safer, easier options as well. Good car-free infrastructure is hard to come by in Southern California, so we need to make sure that existing thoroughfares like the beach bike path stay protected and are continuously expanded upon. This thing was built all the way back in 1989, and it's a travesty that it hasn't been expanded upon to create a robust network of protected bike paths throughout the city. Even the most average European cities all have way better cycling infrastructure than any city in the US, and I think it's high time we get on their level. So, NIMBYs, are you really gonna let the French be better than you? I'll see you next week from 4th place.